Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. All right, let's start with Tom Brady's debut. Good God, Cleveland's a disaster. You know, I was sitting there thinking as I'm watching that game, if you're going to sign a contract to a quarterback to a guaranteed contract, which you know, Kirk Cousins got one, and Deshaun Watson. I not only want a great player, I want a great leader. I want great health. I want an ascending player. He's virtually none of those. I mean, it's just typical Cleveland. What's ironic, after watching Baker today, Baker's a much better quarterback today, John, than Deshaun Watson. I mean, Baker was a rock star today. I'm sitting there and I'm like, we know it's not Stefanski. We know he's a really bright guy and a good play caller. I mean, I don't even know what Deshaun Watson is. I mean, changing uniforms. He's a bottom 10 quarterback.
You know what's funny is I had on the Redskins or the Commanders game on a little TV, and I wrote down about 10 minutes before we jumped on, Baker's in a different universe, not just as a thrower, his touch. I mean, Deshaun's throwing balls into the stands constantly, but his swag, the way he carries himself, the way his teammates, and even as a playmaker, I mean, it's not like Baker's some elite athlete, but moving around. Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott signed the same contract, essentially right. $230 million guaranteed. How could you pay a player who has character question marks and who has a short resume? I mean, I'm getting texts constantly. I'm sure you are. It has to go down immediately as one of the worst deals in the history of pro sports. You look at Dak, has his flaws in January. Very consistent regular season player, super smart guy, high character leader. Everyone that knows him like him. Deshaun Watson, I was out on him last year. Today, what an embarrassment. Where's the playmaking, Colin? He doesn't make any plays.
Well, and he was never a hyper athletic, or he was never a hyper accurate thrower. That was always the beat on him. I can remember his first year, everybody liked him. He would skip throws. He's not a pretty thrower. He's not an easy thrower. Everything looks like it's a struggle downfield. You know, he was a wildly dynamic athlete. You take that out, and I mean, he's no more athletic today than Dak Prescott. And I've always thought Dak's sort of a B athlete and a B arm. But I was watching Dak today, and I'm like, oh, Dak's a much, much better player than Deshaun Watson. And the thing about Dak is a guy that even when he has his faults, you do feel like he is the soul of the organization. He's the soul. Sure. Deshaun Watson, if you went through that locker room and asked half the guys, you could move off the contract. So I look at Cleveland and I think desperate franchises, desperate owners do dumb things. They're sunk. You can't go anywhere in the AFC with Deshaun Watson.
Well, the reason they won 11 games was Joe Flacco last year.
That's right.
He resurrected him, and they refused to re-sign him because they didn't want any drama. Let's face it, if I was a Browns fan today, I wouldn't want to watch this anymore. He as just a consumer, I didn't have any money on the game or anything, just an awful, terrible watch. Like, who wants to consume that player? Like you said, he used to be able to scramble around and do things. That's gone. Listen, has he lost his confidence? 100%. But whatever that is that we witnessed today was a fish out of water. There are going to be former players, I'm sure, that come to his defense. Well, they were missing offensive linemen. They gave him $230 million to elevate above that as a playmaker, and that's gone.
I thought, I wrote this down. I thought Mike McCarthy, in terms of play calling today, I thought it was sensational. They had a drive in the second quarter. They did everything. I mean, it was shovel passes. It was screens. It was counters and traps. And I'm sitting there watching, and I'm like, this is art. Like, you know, we bang on Mike McCarthy, but he's a 500 playoff coach. He's a 60% winning coach. And you could say, well, he had Aaron Rodgers. Well, he's also had Cooper Rush and Dak, guys who are not considered superstar throwers of the football. I thought Dallas today, and I had my questions, looked so buttoned up offensively. I thought the play calling was good. I thought Dak was in his zone. Listen,
the defense was awesome.
Excellent pass rush. Listen, I don't want to pay Dak $60 million, but good God, 230 was guaranteed. So it takes out the salary cap issues when you guarantee the whole damn thing. And my take is, if you're going to have a quarterback with questions, just guarantee it. Like I saw this week the Niners converted somebody's contract to a signing bonus. Like if you can guarantee the stuff and get it, help you out in the salary cap. But that if you'd have told me one team today played flawless football and it was the Dallas Cowboys in Cleveland with a rookie left tackle against Myles Garrett, it would have been one of the bottom guesses I would have had. That's as good as Dallas can play offensively and defensively to me.
How about Jerry? There's no chance they just got this deal done late Saturday night. He stole the morning with this announcement of this contract. You talk about a showman, and then they answered the bell. The first thing that came, because there had been rumblings when you say this last week, like something might happen here. He might get a contract extension. Yeah. I thought the moment that contract was extended, I'm like, I think that's good for Mike McCarthy because the success Dak has had under him, right? Mike's calling the plays, unlike a lot of these coaches all over the league that just are CEO head coaches. So he directly impacts him. And if Dak continues to have success, let's say they lose in the second round, because I had pivoted on McCarthy. He was easy to beat up a couple years ago, and then he just kept rattling off 12 wins. And then we're anointing guys like Mike McDaniel, who've never won a big game in their entire life and can't win the division. I think the Cowboys have a pretty good chance to win the division this year. Hell, I picked them before the season, like them just as much now. But if they win 11, 12 games again, you're going to pivot off the guy who's your offensive play caller. And like you said, proven to be a pretty good head coach. Okay, he's not Bill Walsh or, Andy Reid. We get that. But you're going to bring in Bill Belichick, right? I mean, that seems like, especially now that you're so invested in Dak. And let's face it, Dak over and over answers the bell in the regular season at a really high level, and he's proven that he can win big games, unlike Lawrence and Tua, who got paid this offseason in December. He just has to get hot like an Eli Manning or Joe Flacco to really kind of cement his legacy. That will always be a question mark, but I don't think there are any more question marks like compare Dak to Kirk Cousins. Like, I think there's a little bit of a gap there. I know their numbers are similar, but I think that's, especially as Kirk's getting older, Jared Goff, he's playing after we talk, but he doesn't move as well. I mean, Dak's really good. He's never going to be the second best quarterback, but you feel pretty good about just putting him in at number 8, and then all the character stuff and the intangibles and the leadership are a really big deal in the sport of football.
Yeah, no, there's no question that he is an adult. And I think from the very first year in the NFL, you always felt like you could trust Dak in the locker room to make smart decisions, stay out of trouble. And, it sounds like, that doesn't really matter. I mean, you could hear Tom Brady on the broadcast today. So much of it is being able to handle hard coaching, to get yelled at. I mean, I can remember during some cultural movements in America, Dak was front and center. I just think he is that soul of the franchise. Speaking of Brady, I always said when Tony Romo took the job, everybody fell in love with him. 3 years later, we're like, Brady's broadcasting career is going to be his playing career. You're going to just watch him work really hard. And you're going to say, he can't do this, can't do this, can't do this as a player. You look up, you're like, he does everything. I thought he was nervous today, especially in the first half. But my takeaway is go to week 8. Tom's going to literally go home tonight and spend the entire night and the next day studying the film. So my take on Tom, everybody was talking about it. I thought he was really nervous to start. It was funny. I talked to him last week off the air and I said, listen, you're going to be nervous. I don't care what anybody says. You're not playing. You can't control it. It's just, and for the record, it is so hard to do well. You basically have to succinctly 300 times in an afternoon, talk for 8 seconds. And you have no idea what you're going to talk about 10 seconds before you talk about it. It's a really hard job. And so that was kind of my take on Brady. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to be a hater. I admire Tom, everything he's accomplished in his career, people I know that know him. And I'm not trying to overreact to one game, but I thought he was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I just thought, he's very tight. He's with Kevin, who's been doing this since he was like 5. Who's very smooth. Aaron Rinaldi. I mean, Rinaldi's one of the greats of all time. Tough spot. He's going to have to find a lane.
Yeah.
Because I think the casual person, and if you're getting 20, 30 million people watching these games, most of them are not diehard football people, right?
Right.
They want to be entertained. Madden's personality, Gruden's eccentric craziness. That's not really going to be. Even Romo was just very excited. And like you said, everyone's turned on him, but he has a lane. I don't necessarily like, is Tom, he didn't really let it fly today on Deshaun Watson. which I thought was a BP fastball, though I don't know if that's going to be his thing. Um, I, I just thought he was kind of tight, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But I don't quite know what's going to be like. I don't think people want, like, let the personality come out that everyone that you're Gronk and Edelman and these guys love you, like be one of the guys, which he obviously has in there. I just think he was kind of stuck in no man's land. And obviously, I'm sure he'd over prepared. The majority of people text I'm getting, and I'm sure we'll see it tomorrow, people will be critical of him. It's a tough spot, but I'm interested to see what lane he figures out. Because today I thought he was kind of in no man's lane. And again,
Yeah.
I like Tom. I'm a Tom Brady guy. I'm not rooting against him, but it was tough. I mean, it's a tough spot.
Yeah, no, it was. He was choppy and he just didn't quite listen. I've talked for a living. It takes rhythm. If I take 10 days off, I come back the following Monday, I'm rusty. Like I need an hour to get back into my rhythm. So it's not the easiest thing.